What is up, Breakthrough Success listeners? Mark Cabrera, the podcast and coach here, helping people launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts. And when it comes to achieving success in business, one of the things we have to do is change. Because if you are not achieving the success you want to achieve, then doing the same things that you're already doing now is not going to help you. To change your results, you have to change yourself. Where am I going with this? People understand that they had to change, but they don't necessarily change. And for some people, they know how they have to change to reach the next level, but they don't necessarily know how to make that change long lasting. So our guest is going to help us with that today. She's worked 80 hours each week in healthcare, and that was until her workload took a big hit on her personal and professional life. Her demanding career, though, launched her on a journey to cracking the code to working smarter, not harder, while finding the gratification in her work to keep her fueled, motivated, and inspired. So our guest who joins us in this episode of Breakthrough Success is none other than Sabrina Runbeck. Sabrina, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Sabrina, I'm so happy to have you on Breakthrough Success. And I feel like there are a lot of people who they feel like they know what they have to be doing, but they're not doing it. Or they're wondering, why am I still stuck in the same spot? And it comes back to change that little monologue I was having a little earlier leading into our conversation. So I'm wondering if we could go right into it. If you could share with us your experience with change and how you've been able to make some changes to get to where you are.
Yeah, it's such a great topic. As you're saying, a lot of us have an idea of what we want, but we're not actually have a clear vision enough to keep us going. Because, so for me is that I always know I wanted to be in medicine, and going through school, it just seems like endless, right? Years in medical training, but it's rewarding. However, a few years back, I got a typical call in the afternoon saying, oh, there's a patient and it's urgent. You need to go see him right now. So of course, you check their medical record really quickly so you're prepared. And what I found was really shocking to me. So this is actually an early 30-year-old. And by the time he came to our group, he already had 3 open heart surgery. Mm-hmm. And it's not someone who has congenital, means like, childhood heart problems. No, none of that. And it's simply because he had dental issue, and then that caused the infection in his heart. That is scary, right? Like anybody as young as us can get sick on the whim, and then we are unable to predict that. So when I saw my patient, it was just really, heavy-hearted. And when I saw him, he was wearing an oxygen mask, sitting on the side of bed. His wife looked so worried, wrinkle, almost feel like they're fixing place. And he has 2 kids in the room just playing on the side. And what I learned was it took them 4 different ER visits to find out that he actually had a heart infection. Because for most young people, we feel like when we have a cough and cold, it just goes by. We don't really pay much attention to that. And until your symptom doesn't go away and you start feeling more tired, you can't really do anything anymore, right? So it's almost that thinking of burned out, or like we're just working through it. It's working the process. And we're not really getting to that end issue to fix that. So when he was finally diagnosed of this issue, of course, the couple was really relieved to know there at least the answer. But after 3 surgeries later, he's not better. He was still tired. His heart's still not functioning. And so I spent a lot of time discussing this step-by-step way to how we can repair this valve yet another time. The more we open up the chest, the higher risk people have. So we did give him a new valve, great. And to ensure that he's safe and he recovers well, I saw him every day for the next month when he was in the hospital, including the holidays and weekends. And he remembers what time I showed up. And it was a great experience with so being so close to the family and learning about how their life was before all this happened, and then what they imagined the life could be right afterwards. But that experience really made me think really hard about myself. Am I just running like a hamster on the wheel every day, going to work? Yes, I'm doing meaningful work, but am I feel satisfied in what I'm doing? Am I living up to the best as I can be? Or I'm just saying, well, I'm used to this, I know what I'm doing, so this is it, right? And to that point is when I started discovering there are more. I cannot be stuck in a place where all I can think is work, and there's lose a sense of peace of myself. And it can be something that relatable to other people, you potentially, that when you are chasing your dreams, open up the next chapter of your book, you're so focused on that, right? And yes, you might be so excited, but life is not just career development. Life is not just some financial support. Life is so many different parts. Family, friends, social, quality of life, right? Spirituality, how are you connecting with your higher beings or your life mission, right? So that's the pivotal point. I say, I need to do more. Let me find out ways that actually is simpler to do, not just stuck reading a bunch of books and still couldn't find answers.
And I mean, to have that kind of experience where either you have a situation where, your life suddenly feels finite, or you come across someone who looks like they're at the end of the road. I mean, that really does make you think deeper about yourself, and like, are you happy with yourself? Are you doing all the different things that you want to be doing? Like, do you have financials in check? But also like family, spirituality, a lot of these key points that Sabrina touches on. And like with this whole conversation about change, I feel like we're all changing whether we want to or not. So I'd be like, suddenly having like, the heart conditions and stuff like that, suddenly being in the hospital, that's change. Now we have to think about how that change happens, because for a lot of people, it's bad food choices, it's putting too much stress on themselves. So we are all changing no matter what, but it's a matter of changing in the ways that we want to change.
Yeah, exactly. Because actually the norm is change. The norm is going with the energy flow of whatever come to you. However, what hold people back is that whenever there is a change in place, people get out of that normal routine, so they become fearful of what could happen in the future. And then depression is something that you are stuck on things in the past, right? So if we are fearful in the future, we don't know what's happening, that become more discouraged of making that leap outside your comfort zone into that fear zone. But if you have a growth mindset to say, I'm not limited by my ability, anything that comes my way, I know how to solve it, because that's part of confidence, right? That's social confidence, asking the right questions, collaborate with people, knowing, yes, I might know everything, but I have the ability to figure things out. And then you can march outside of that fear zone into the growth zone and going somewhere that you actually truly want.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like really, really great points. And change is just so constant, and just being able to make sure you are changing in all of these right ways. And one of the things that I want to touch on is that some people feel like, they don't have the time to change, where like having a growth mindset is so important. But some people will say, I mean, you worked 80 hours a week. Some people may have that. Some people may work even more than that because they have to do multiple jobs. So there are going to be some people who say they don't have enough time. And what would your suggestion be to people who say don't have enough time, but who still want to see the change, that an ideal change in themselves?
I think it's the mindset, right? Saying that we don't have enough, that's in the lacking state, right? We don't have to feel like we're in the lack. We all have the same amount of time. We all have the same amount of appropriate amount of time. It's not about time management, it's about self-management. Most of the time, we don't have a clarity on where life is going because people don't ask themselves these hard questions from day to day, week to week, right? So when they say they don't have enough time to make a change, they're already changing day by day. You're not eating the same thing every day, 3 meals a day, right? I mean, you can't possibly go to the bathroom the same time of the day, right? So there's silly things that people would give ourselves excuse to because they still resort to what's comfortable. So number one, I say when things need to be changed is find your clarity. I think that's something that a lot of people would say, find out clarity, but it's not something that we actually ask ourselves. Can you, every day in the morning, to say, what are my 3 core values? Is that hold the truth this week as compared to last week? Can I say these are the 3 values I hold dearly, that anything else come my way that doesn't align with who I am, what I want to be, where my life is true to be, and then that should be eliminated, right? And some of us are so easily to say, oh yeah, I think I can do it, so I'm adding another thing onto our plate. So the more you add on, the more yeses you're saying a lot of no's to things that truly matter to you.
And I mean, again, this idea where when you say you don't have enough time, you're putting lack in the equation. And the way you talk about yourself and the circumstances, like some people say, I don't have enough time. Others will say, I have the time, I just need to prioritize it better. So saying
Correct.
that I don't have the time is one of those, like, you don't have control over the situation, while
Right.
prioritizing gives you control. You can just move things around, make some things more important than others. But I do love that idea of having the core values, that whole baseline that really guides you in like what you do throughout the day, what runs through your mind. So core values, I feel like you hear about very often, but I don't feel like we all have them written down. I know personally, I just have a bunch of core values that I just think of in my mind. It's not like I have this whole list that I have written down. So Sabrina, what if you could share with us, what are some of your core values and how can we figure out what ours should be?
So my core values, it's actually something that I ask a lot of people I work with too. So just pick 3 words. That's it, right? Can be verb, adjective, or noun that mostly align to what you want out of life. So my 3 words are elevate, to connect, and to be charismatic. Because I truly believe that I draw energy from connecting with people. Like, what are we doing right now? Or hopping on the phone, meeting a new person, connect to a friend who I haven't seen for a long time, right? Like my best friend from college, she's my maid of honor, and we don't have to talk to each other for months. And you pick up the phone, you feel like everything were just like how it used to be, right? So, and they also depend on personality. And elevate is about serving. I believe success is measured on how many people I serve and how much of transformation, elevation they can have. If you just give and give, but people don't see the value you're giving or you're not matching what they needed, then it's kind of like waste of time, isn't it? Like you're just pouring yourself out. Like you can talk to your lips are dry, your throat is like dead, but if people are not receiving that because your method or your message per se, then you're not adding value for people. And then lastly is charismatic, is because my personality is that the fun. I want everyone to have a good time. I'm a little bit very type A, but if people have an event, they all come to me because I'll get things done. That's why even one of my coach calls me the queen of productivity. So so that's how I see myself. Who I was actually doesn't matter a whole lot. It's my present self and then where I'm going into the future. Because our paths are always can say, even we fail is a lesson, right? If history keep repeating itself, maybe because you haven't learned that lesson yet, and therefore you keep going back to that until you figure yourself out, then you can move on.
And I like this focus on providing value to others. One of the parts of your three main core values. And going back to this idea of change and this idea of giving value to people, the change itself, like going through the process of making the change, that's an internal process. But the end result of change is something external where you are giving something to someone, you are giving people value. Like, for instance, I have a lot of people on the show who they were doing super successful, and then they have this massive burnout. Some of them get a heart attack too early. Some of them get diseases too early, like all these conditions too early. And they make the change because a lot of them, they think of their kids. And when you have a reason to make the change, like internally it's still about how you have to be the one who makes the changes to yourself, but have the reason, have like the, who are you providing value to? I mean, we talk about providing valuable content, like valuable podcast episodes, but who are you providing value to just by your presence?
Yes, exactly. You touch on the necessity part, right? Why? So clarity is just all the what, right? And then that's what I call, like, if your cognition is telling you what you're supposed to do, and then what's the risk benefit, right? But then at the end of the day, humans are driven by emotions. It's driven by that why in our heart. So if we don't even have a clear idea why we're doing something, then it's really difficult to actually make that initial step. And once we have a clear idea why we're doing something, either for our kids, for ourself, it's for our family, then you have to do the third step is imagining how you would feel once that something is accomplished. Because if you just have an idea of what it is, but not relate to that emotion and feeling, let's say, I'm able to help 10 people next week to overcome stress. However they define overcome stress is, right? We're all different. Whether it's just to say they can sleep a little bit better, they can wake up feeling like they're not having to snooze their alarm clock 4 times, right? But that, how do they feel when they wake up if they're refreshed? Would they feel like they can have extra hour to be able to go to the gym, which they haven't been able to do before, right? Or to say, like, I used to come home so exhausted, I don't even want to go out to meet my friend, but now I can. So what is that feeling? Oh, do I feel joyful? Do I feel like, oh, I'm actually immersed with this positivity of people around me? Like I'm not a loner anymore. Like what is it, right? So after we get clarity and understand your reason why, then trying to imagine what's that emotion you will get once you get to that end result. So then linking all this together, it can help you to make more changes.
And I do want to, I mean, we are driven by emotion. That's a really great key point Sabrina brings up because, logically, you would want to, get sleep and stuff and be healthy and stuff. But again, a lot of the guests on my show, it's not like they looking like, oh, logically I should get better at this. It's, they get like some kind of cancer or some kind of big life-threatening thing. They're like, oh, wow, my kids, I want to be there for the graduation. I want to be there for their wedding, whatever it is, because, people have different goals for where they want to be for their children based on how old the kid is at that moment. But and it's not just kids; it could be like a spouse, but the idea is that like usually there's a more emotional stake in it. So one of the things you did mention though was to just like sort of visualize yourself and the feelings of like already having the end results. And while it can be a motivator, I feel like some people can get stuck in the fantasy land and realize that, I mean, not realize that, it hasn't happened yet. So how can we go to that place where, we're feeling like we've accomplished it, we put ourselves in that mental state, and then at the same time acknowledge where we are now and do the work we have to do to get to the fantasy state?
Yeah, great question. So we have to start with those bigger ideas, right? Because if we don't have the bigger ideas, you can't really formulate a true path in life. So once we have those bigger ideas set, those those big make you heart flutter, those things that really drive you, then it goes down the nitty gritties. Means something that become what's called the things are specific, the SMART goals, right? So something you can do that's measurable, things that are simple that you can do on a daily basis, things are realistic, right? And then time-based, because for a lot of people that we actually are driven by deadlines, right? So if we say, I need to finish this project by 3 o'clock because my boss need it, you're definitely gonna get on it, right? But if someone give you a project just like, oh, just do it whenever, you probably might be getting distracted by something else. So if we can even do that for life, just to set goals to say, if I have a planner, I'm gonna write down what I wanted to do that's aligned with my core value. And then when do I want to achieve that by? Is that today, tomorrow, next week, next month? And how do I get there if it's a month out, right? Do I do 10% today? See how it goes, right? If it do well, I'm going to do another 10% tomorrow. If I feel like I can handle it, maybe I can expand into adding on top of my plate, right? So then the little bit action that you take give you confidence in yourself. And that confidence turn into a competency because you start seeing, oh, I got this, right? Like, yes. So then this loop of you keep going and then become more consistency. The more we do it and it's small, it's easy, and then you know how to do it, that give you the ability to turn into a natural habit. You don't have to think about it and you just do it.
Yeah, and I love the idea of, again, the difference between a deadline and knowing when you're supposed to get something done and just whenever. Because whenever you could just keep putting that off, you come up with every excuse in the book because it's okay to, because there's no deadline. But when there is a deadline, you're no excuses. You got to get the thing done at the time it's supposed to get done. So I feel like that's a very important distinction that will help people build up their consistency and be able to go from where they are now to the change that they want to have. And if you listening to this on radio and podcasts or watching this over on YouTube, one of the things that you may want to do to continue on this journey of change is to follow Sabrina's work. So I'm wondering, Sabrina, if you could share with us some of the places we go to find you. I know you have an assessment for people, but just where are some good places we can go?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for having me and talking to our audience. So definitely to something that we touch upon is finding clarity. So I developed a assessment for that specifically because all of us are constantly dividing our attention to the next project. Maybe I need another degree. Maybe I needed the next promotion, right? But deep down, we're feeling overwhelmed of this endless to-do list. And then we don't really know exactly where life is going. Can I really check off everything I need to be done? So if we're in this limbo state of just doing things and not having clarity, then we don't know what needs to be changed and how to fix it. So I create a holistic life assessment for that specific purpose in order for us to assess the different key component of life. And so then you can find out your inner strength and use that as your building block to grow. And ultimately, then you can find these specific areas you can set target for improvement. And so with this understanding, then we can find the true path to go forward. And people can go to sabrinarunbeck.com/assessment to grab your free copy. And I am also knowing, even you just do assessment, and it still might not gonna give you direct help. So actually, we're just in time on November 4th, Monday night. I'm doing a free mini workshop for 5 days. And that is called the Crack the Code to Create Your Dream Life. I like to teach with acronyms, so we'll go over what DREAM stands for. And people can find out more information on that at sabrinarunbeck.com/workshop. I'm very active on Instagram and my Facebook private group. So people can message me there if they need anything. I'm an open book if you want to ask me anything.
Well, Sabrina, thank you so much for sharing those resources and all of your great insights with us all at Breakthrough Success. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Same here, Mark. Thank you so much. Have a good day.